So very often, as a math and a science teacher, or any math and science teacher, we always get questions, do we have to show our units? Do we have to write our units out? And instead of just saying, yes, you have to, let's talk about why. Let's talk about why we use units and why they are so important. So let's look here. Let's ask a question. We say, how much work did you do? What if you just said, I did 4. I did 4 work, Mr. Anderson. Oh, okay. How long can you hold your breath for? 2. How far did you walk? 17. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. How much Netflix did you watch? Well, 42. All right. How fast did the bullet go? 800. The bullet went a lot, 800. And how much did you eat? Let's say 21. Well, hopefully, as you can see, the world will be terrible without units. What does this mean? When you say 4, was it 4 logs? And even if it was logs, well, did you split 4 logs? Did you lift 4 logs? How much do the logs weigh? How long can you hold your breath for? Well, if you had said seconds, well, that's really not that impressive. If you had said minutes, I would have said, good job. If you had said hours, well, I'd say, well, you're not human. If you said, well, how far did you walk? Well, if you said 17, I'd say, what does that mean? Is that 17 inches? Because that's like slug speed. If it's 17 miles, well, I'd say, well, that was a pretty long walk. We can do that for all these. How much did you eat? Well, that could be calories. That could be chicken wings. That could be a lot of things that we measure. How much Netflix did you watch? Well, that could be 42. Well, that's 42 minutes. You watch Netflix for 42 minutes. That could be 42 episodes. That could be 42, well, days if you did like a long binger. The point is, if you don't show units, if you don't have units, the world would be insane. No one would know what anybody meant. So this is why we have units for things like weight, for things like distance, or time, or yes, even Netflix binges. So how do we measure weight? How do we measure distances? Well, some of them have multiple. In fact, almost all of them have multiple ways of measuring it. We can measure weight in pounds, and there's several other ways we'll talk about later. Distance, there's meters, there's miles, there's inches, there's feet. And we know this. We know these things. For time, well, what is that? Well, there's seconds. We have minutes. We have hours. We have days. And Netflix binges, we've got, again, we could say minutes. We could say episodes. We could say seasons. Or again, we could say days. And the point I'm trying to drive home here is we need units. And I'll add some exclamation marks for emphasis. So now that we've agreed that we need units, let's go ahead and define it real quick. A unit is just what we use to measure. What we use to measure. So things like pounds, things like meters or miles, and so on and so forth. Sometimes we get things like miles per hour. Well, that's more than one unit, Mr. Anderson. That's miles and hours. Well, okay, that's combined units. Let's go ahead and take a second to explain what that is. Combined units, well, that's basically just coming from, or let's say comes from, multiple measurements. Multiple measurements. And I'm just typing it out to make it look nicer so you can read it. But again, what we're talking about when we say combined units are things like miles per hour. So that's combining miles and hours. So let's look at an example. Let's go back to this 800. How fast did the bullet go? Well, it went 800. Well, 800 what? Let's say the bullet went 800 feet. Let's write that out, that the bullet, so we know what we're talking about. The bullet went 800 feet in 1 second. So over a period of time of 1 second. What does that mean? Well, we mean 800 feet over a period of time of 1 second. Well, this just becomes a math problem. What's 800 divided by 1? Well, clearly it's 800. But what is feet divided by seconds? Well, you can't really divide feet by seconds. They're not like terms. So you would just leave it as feet per second. And that's where combined units come from. So let's look at another example. Let's say, well, Anderson lost 5 pounds in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. What does that mean? Well, Anderson lost 5 pounds over a period of time of 2 weeks. Well, this again becomes a math problem. What's 5 divided by 2? Well, that's clearly 2.5. And pounds per week, well, again, those aren't like terms, so we would just say pounds per week. In other words, every week he lost 2.5 pounds. To get 2 weeks to get 5 pounds. And when you're combining units, you can make up your own. So let's look at an example of that. Let's say I watched 73 episodes of Dragon Ball Z in one day. Well, that is just essentially saying that I watched 73 episodes per day, and we just invented a whole new unit. And that's why we use units in a nutshell, and how we use units in a nutshell.